You ever had your parents look you dead in the eye and say one thing your whole life, only to turn around and do the exact opposite the moment it benefits them? That's what happened to me. For years, every conversation, every holiday, every little success in my life, my mom and dad reminded me, don't forget your roots, like it was some kind of sacred chant. Like those words were supposed to anchor me, keep me grounded, keep me tied to them forever. And maybe it worked, because I did carry those words like a weight, like an obligation, but nothing prepared me for the night they sat across from me and dropped a $2,000 utility bill in front of me like it was my responsibility. $2,000, not a loan, not a discussion, just a demand wrapped in guilt. My mom's voice was soft but loaded when she said, "Family comes first, don't forget your roots." And in that moment, truth is, I froze, because all the old training kicked in. The years of being the good son, the helper, the one who solved problems even when I was just a kid. You know that feeling when the past rushes back all at once? That was me. I remembered being 12 years old, calling the cable company to fix a bill because dad didn't want to wait on hold. I remembered being the translator at the doctor's office because mom hated filling out forms. I remembered sacrificing weekends to mow the yard, paint the fence, cook dinner when they were too tired. And each time I thought if I just did enough, they'd be proud. They'd stop reminding me not to forget where I came from. But no, here I was, 30 years old, working my own job, paying my own rent, and still they looked at me like their safety net. When I asked why the bill was so high, dad got loud, like volume could cover the cracks. It's just this once. Rates went up. It's been cold. Your mother's joints need the heater. But 2,000? Come on. I asked them to show me the bill and mom insisted. We'll bring it by. Face to face. Family should talk face to face. And in that moment, I knew I was walking into a trap. But the old habit spoke for me. Sure, come over. They showed up with a manila envelope like it was a top secret file. Dad pacing, mom clutching her purse, and then she slid the paper across the table, repeating the line like a spell. Don't forget your roots. I glanced down. $2.018.47, late fee listed. Due date circled, and I'll admit, the reflex to just pull out my wallet almost took me down right there. But then my eyes caught details that didn't fit. The service address said Unit B. The usage graph looked like a roller coaster. And there was even a line item for a pool heater. A pool heater? They didn't have a pool. I asked casually. Pool heater? Dad muttered. Neighborhood thing. And mom shot him a glare before cutting in. We're wasting time. Your father's embarrassed. And that's when I knew they were hiding something. I pressed. Why does it say Unit B? And why's there a service call for an outdoor kitchen line? The room went quiet except for the fridge humming. Dad's pacing stopped. Mom's hand tightened around her purse. And then it hit me. I remembered the Facebook photo from last spring. Mom smiling in a backyard with string lights and a shiny grill. Captioned, borrowed the neighbor's patio for the night. Cute. Only now the bill in my hands told me it wasn't borrowed. It was theirs. My mom finally said, we did a little upgrade. It's for family. So when you come home it feels worthy of you. And I felt this grief-anger hybrid rise in me. Because she was using love language as camouflage. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, voice tight. Dad exhaled like a steam kettle. Because we knew you'd say no and because we raised you. We kept the lights on for you. It's your turn. That's what roots mean. And in that moment, roots didn't feel like family anymore. It felt like a leash. I asked for the utility portal login. Told them I'd pay it online. They stalled, said they forgot, but I scanned the QR code myself and there it was. Recent service calls including, guest unit meter install, Unit B. Guest unit. My chest went cold. Before I could even react, my phone buzzed on the table, my sister's name flashing. Her text short and sharp. They asked you too. Didn't they? Call me. It's about the rental. And right then, everything tilted. Because now I knew this wasn't about a high bill. It was about a secret they'd been hiding. A rental. An entire story behind the curtain. And the leash around my neck suddenly felt a whole lot tighter. And that's when I had to ask myself, what would you do? Pay to keep the peace? Or pull at the knot and risk unraveling the whole family? I didn't call my sister right away. I just sat there staring at her text like it was a siren in the dark. The word, rental, burning a hole in my mind. And suddenly all those little throwaway comments from my parents came back to haunt me. Mom mentioning extra space last year. Dad mumbling at Thanksgiving about investments. Me laughing it off because I thought they were just daydreaming again. But now with that bill in my hand showing Unit B and my sister's warning, the truth was starting to come into focus. I looked at them across my kitchen table and said slowly, "What rental?" And Mom's eyes flickered like a candle in the wind. Too quick, too defensive. "What rental?" she repeated like she hadn't heard me the first time. And Dad rubbed the back of his neck, muttering, "It's nothing, just a side project. You don't need to worry." But if it was nothing, why was my sister texting me in a panic? I held up the phone so they could see. She knows. She called it a rental. So let's stop pretending. And that's when Dad slumped into the chair across from me like a balloon deflating, while Mom's lips tightened into a hard line. And then Dad sighed. "We built a guest unit in the backyard. Thought we'd rent it out. Make a little income for retirement." He said it so matter of fact. Like it was no big deal. Like it was something he just forgot to mention at Sunday dinner. But then he added the dagger. "Bills have been higher because of it. But you're doing well. You can help." And I swear something inside me cracked because it wasn't the unit that broke me, it was the lie. The fact they'd built something with 50 grand and kept me and my sister in the dark while still calling me for grocery money last year. I asked through clenched teeth, "How much did you spend?" Mom muttered, "Not important." But Dad admitted, "Around 50 grand. But it's an investment. It'll pay off." 50 grand. From people who swore they were barely scraping by. Now staring at me like I was their emergency fund. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking. And Mom snapped, "Because you judge us. Because you think you're better now. Because you forgot where you came from. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. And you can't even cover one bill?" And Dad piled on with his old metaphors. "Family helps family. You don't cut the tree that held you up." But all I heard was manipulation dressed as wisdom. Roots and trees twisted into chains. I said, "This isn't one time, is it? If I pay this, it'll be next month. And the next. Every time your tenant runs the heater." And Mom hissed, "Don't talk like that. Don't talk to us like we're strangers." But that's exactly how I felt. Like a stranger funding someone else's dream. My phone buzzed again. My sister's text flashing. They told me it's for all of us. Don't fall for it. My chest tightened. And I asked them directly, "So this rental, it's in your names, right? Who's on the deed?" Dad hesitated. Too long. And Mom cut in. "Both of us, of course." Why? And right then I knew. I wasn't being asked to help family. I was being asked to subsidize an investment I had no stake in. No protection from. No future with. I pushed the bill back across the table and said flatly, "I'll think about it." Mom's face crumpled into tears. Dad muttered under his breath. But I was already reaching for my phone. Because I needed to hear from my sister. I needed to know how deep this rabbit hole went. And deep down I knew this wasn't about a single bill anymore. It was about whether I'd keep playing the good son or finally draw a line that might burn every bridge we had left. I called my sister the second they walked out. My hand gripping the phone so tight it hurt. And the moment she answered, her voice was low and rushed like she had been waiting for this. "They asked you too, didn't they? About the bill?" And I said yes. $2,000 for utilities. But the word, rental, in her text told me it wasn't that simple. And she let out this long shaky sigh. "It's not utilities. It's the unit out back. They built it. They've been renting it for months. And they've been leaning on me too." And my chest clenched. "How much?" I asked. And she whispered, ashamed, "Almost 4 grand so far. Little by little. Because they told me if I didn't, they'd fall behind on the mortgage." And I froze. My thoughts racing. 4 grand? And they never said a word to me. They just dropped this bomb tonight. And she gave this bitter laugh. "That's what they do. They play us off each other. Make me think you're covering things. Make you think I'm covering things. And in the end they're covering their shiny new project with our money." My stomach churned because I could hear the guilt still dripping from her voice. The same guilt they had poured into me for years. And I asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" And she said softly, "Because I was embarrassed. Because every time I tried to push back, Mom cried and Dad reminded me I owe them everything for raising us." And that's when it clicked. They were running the same script on both of us. Same guilt trips. Same manipulation. Same roots sermon. Just swapping the names of who was supposed to carry the burden this time. I pressed, "So who's living there?" And she admitted, "Some guy. Mid-30s. Not family like they said. Just a tenant paying cash every month. No lease. No paperwork. Just under the table, and my voice went flat. How much is he paying? And she hesitated before whispering. $14.50. Every month. I saw the receipt once when Mom left it on the counter. She tried to hide it, but I recognized the number. My hands shook because the math was simple. $1,500 coming in, $2,000 on the utilities. They weren't drowning. They were lying, taking our money to cushion their secret. After we hung up, I pulled up the portal again, digging deeper this time, and there it was in black and white. Rental surcharge Unit B applied to landlord account. Not homeowner, landlord, which meant they had registered it. And below that, a tenant ID tied to $1.450 monthly rent. My pulse hammered, because the truth was undeniable. They had income. They had cash, but instead of using it, they had hoarded it, or spent it, or hidden it, and then leaned on us to make up the gap. Not gonna lie, I felt hollow, like my entire childhood had been training for this. Don't forget your roots, just conditioning to make me bend when they pulled the leash. I sat there staring at the screen, wondering what else they had hidden, what else I had unknowingly funded. And the ugliest thought came crawling in. Maybe they didn't even see us as kids anymore. Maybe we were just assets. Accounts to draw from, safety nets to catch their bad bets. And I had to decide, do I confront them with proof and risk tearing the family apart? Or do I swallow the bile, pay the bill, and keep living as the obedient son they trained me to be? Because one path promised peace built on lies, and the other promised war built on truth. And either way, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I couldn't get the numbers out of my head. $1.450 rent flowing in every month. $2.018 billed to me like it was my duty. My sister's voice cracking with shame after confessing she'd already given them $4,000. And I kept hearing Mom's soft manipulative chant. Family comes first. Don't forget your roots. Like it was less a reminder and more a command to stay tethered forever. So the next morning I drove straight to their house because I needed proof with my own eyes. Not just numbers on a screen. And when I pulled up, the backyard didn't look like the one I grew up with. It had been transformed. New fencing, new paint, a narrow stone walkway leading to a door that had never existed before. And above it a bright light burning even in daylight, like it was proud to shine. So I knocked, half hoping no one would answer. But the door creaked open and a man in his 30s stood there rubbing his eyes. Clearly woken up, and he said, "Yeah?" Like I was the intruder. And my voice came out sharper than I intended. "You live here?" And he nodded slowly. 3 months now. Why? And I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach because 3 months ago Dad had told me he was too broke to buy groceries and asked me to send him a little extra. And I asked this stranger, "You pay rent to my parents?" And he shrugged. "Cash. Every first of the month. $1.450. They said it keeps things simple, and that was it." The truth carved into stone. My parents weren't victims of high bills. They were landlords pocketing cash and passing the costs to me and my sister. I thanked him stiffly and walked back to my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Not with fear but with betrayal. The kind that boils under your skin and doesn't let you breathe right. On the way home I called my sister and told her everything. And when I said, "It's true, $1.450 in cash every month," she went silent before whispering, "So we've been covering utilities while they pocket rent," and I said, "Exactly, and they didn't slip up. They planned this." And she murmured, "We can't keep doing this. We have to confront them." And even though my heart raced at the thought, I knew she was right. Because staying silent would mean years more of this game. So we made a pact to face them together. No more one-on-one manipulation. No more being divided. We'd meet at Sunday dinner and demand the truth. Sunday came. I walked in with my sister at my side. Mom smiling like nothing was wrong. Dad cracking a joke about football while the smell of roast chicken filled the air. And it made me sick how normal it all looked. How practiced their smiles were. Like con artists hosting their own children. And we sat. The plates clinked. Small talk stumbled. But then my sister slammed her fork down so hard it echoed. "We know," she said, her voice trembling but loud. And the room froze. Dad's face lost its color. Mom blinked fast like she was scrambling for a script. And I leaned in and said steadily, "We know about Unit B, we know about the tenant. We know about the rent. $1.450 in cash every month. And we know you've been using this to cover the bills." And silence filled the room until Dad snapped. "You've been spying on us?" And I shot back. "No, we've been paying your bills while you lied to us. There's a difference." And Mom's eyes filled with tears on cue. Her voice trembling. "We did this for family. For you. So you'd have a place. So your children would too. Why are you punishing us for building something better?" And I felt my jaw clench. "Better for who? You hoard rent money and still demand our help. That's not roots. That's theft." And my sister leaned in. Her voice breaking. "You used me. You used him. You made us feel guilty while you hid the truth. Do you even know what that does to us?" And Dad slammed his fist on the table, rattling the plates. "We're your parents. You owe us respect. You owe us support. We gave you life." And in that moment it hit me with crystal clarity. They didn't want respect. They wanted control. And every "don't forget your roots" was just another way of saying, "don't cut the leash." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the bill, laid it on the table between us, and said coldly, "This is the last time. No more bills. No more lies. You want us in your life. Start telling the truth." And the room cracked. Mom sobbing, Dad glaring, my sister's hand gripping mine under the table. And I knew the roots they talked about weren't keeping us grounded anymore, they were choking us. And the only question left was whether I had the courage to sever them and finally breathe. The air at that table was so heavy it felt like the ceiling was going to cave in. Mom crying into her napkin. Dad staring at me like I was a stranger. My sister's grip on my hand the only thing keeping me from shaking apart. And I realized this was the breaking point. The moment you either cave and go back to the old script or you tear the script in half and write a new one. So I looked at them both and said, "You built something behind our backs. You lied about it. You collected rent in cash. You hid it. And then you asked us to cover your costs while you pocketed the profit. And you used words like roots and family as chains. Not love, chains. And I'm done being chained." My dad growled, "Don't you dare talk to us like that. We gave you everything." And I shot back, "You gave me life. Yes. And I'm grateful. But you don't get to use that forever as a debt collector. I don't owe you my future because of my past." And my sister chimed in, her voice steadier now. "We're not your banks. We're not your tenants. We're not your guilt cushions. We're your kids. And if you can't treat us like that, then maybe you don't deserve us in your lives." The words landed like a grenade. Mom gasped. Dad slammed his palm down again. But this time I didn't flinch. I just leaned forward and said, "Here's what's going to happen. You handle your own bills. You stop lying. And you stop using roots as a leash. Because roots are supposed to help you grow, not choke you until you can't breathe." They both stared at me, stunned. And for once they had no script. No guilt card to play that would land. Because the truth was on the table now and it was heavier than their manipulation. I stood up. My sister stood with me. And I could feel Dad's glare burning into my back. Mom sobbing louder like she thought her tears would glue us back into obedience. But I kept walking, my sister at my side. Out the door into the cool night air that felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. In the car my sister whispered, "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" And I shook my head. "The question is, will we ever forgive them?" And she nodded slowly. Both of us staring ahead at the road lit by street lamps. The future unknown but finally ours. Not gonna lie, it hurt. It burned. It felt like a funeral for something that had been rotting for years. But it also felt like freedom. Like we had finally cut the leash. And here's the thing. Family isn't supposed to be a chain. It's supposed to be a choice. A bond built on love and respect. Not a transaction. Not a bill slipped across the table with a sermon about roots. And if you've ever been in that position, you know the pain and the relief of saying no. As we drove away my phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. "You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. You'll remember who raised you." And I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Because I don't need to remember who raised me. I need to remember who I am now. Someone who finally stood up. Someone who finally said no. And maybe one day they'll see what they lost. Maybe one day they'll realize roots aren't meant to trap. They're meant to nourish. But until that day, I'm choosing to grow in my own soil. Even if it means starting fresh. Because sometimes the only way to honor your roots is to cut free from the ones that are rotten. And trust me, that's a choice I'll never regret.